He made one studio album in his entire life. It took him 3 years to record it. It took him 3 more years to tour it. Then he went to Memphis to record the second one. He never finished it. On May 29, 1997, Jeff Buckley walked into the Mississippi River fully clothed, jeans, t-shirt, boots, singing Led Zeppelin at the top of his voice. He was 30 years old. His roadie looked away for a moment. When he looked back, Buckley was gone. This is the story of the man who made one perfect album and disappeared before he could make another, and the story of the father he barely knew, and the river that took them both. His father left before he was born. Tim Buckley, folk singer, jazz musician, cult figure, abandoned Jeff's mother before Jeff came into the world. Tim Buckley had a voice like his son would have. Extraordinary range. Something in it that went past technique into something that couldn't be taught. He also had a heroin problem and a pattern of leaving people who needed him. Jeff grew up in Southern California without a father. His mother, Mary Guibert, a classically trained pianist, raised him alone through a series of moves, city to city, town to town. Jeff later called it a lonely childhood, the kind that produces musicians. He started playing guitar at age 5. He had his mother's discipline and his father's voice. He knew about Tim Buckley. He could hear the resemblance in old recordings, in the specific quality of something that ran in the blood whether you wanted it to or not. He resented his father, and he was fascinated by him. Most of his friends didn't even know who his father was. Jeff kept it quiet. He didn't want to be Tim Buckley's son. He wanted to be Jeff Buckley. He met his father once. For 9 days. Jeff was 8 years old. Tim Buckley reached out. He invited his son to come and stay with him in California. Jeff went. They spent 9 days together, a father and a son who were strangers meeting each other for the first time, finding the same voice in 2 different people, separated by 20 years. Tim played him music. Jeff listened. Then Jeff went back to his mother, and Tim Buckley went back to his life. 2 months later, Tim Buckley was dead, heroin and morphine overdose. He was 28 years old. Jeff was 8. His father had been in his life for 9 days, and then not at all, and then dead. Jeff said later about those 9 days, "I knew him for 9 days." But those 9 days contained a whole life. He took his father's surname. He had been Jeffrey Scott Guibert. He became Jeff Buckley, not to honor the man, to reclaim the name, to carry it somewhere Tim Buckley never went. In 1994, Jeff Buckley released Grace. He was 27 years old. It had taken him years to get to this point. Los Angeles, where nobody paid attention. New York, where he built a following playing solo sets at a tiny cafe called Cine. A record deal that almost didn't happen. Sessions that were restarted multiple times. Grace contained 7 original songs and 3 covers. The covers were not obvious choices. A medieval carol, a Nina Simone song that was itself a cover, and a Leonard Cohen song that nobody outside of a small group of music obsessives knew. The originals were unlike anything being made in 1994. Mojo Pin opened with 2 minutes of pure noise before resolving into something extraordinary. Last Goodbye was a breakup song that felt like a film score. Lover, You Should Have Come Over was 8 minutes long and nobody cared because nobody wanted it to end. Grace sold modestly on release. Radio ignored it. The singles were too long, too complicated, too unwilling to be simple. But the people who found it couldn't let it go. David Bowie said Grace was the one album he would take to a desert island. Bob Dylan called Jeff Buckley one of the great songwriters of the decade. Jimmy Page said Buckley had the greatest voice he had ever heard. None of this happened in time for Jeff Buckley to know about it. He died before Grace became what it became. He almost didn't record Hallelujah. Leonard Cohen had written the song in 1984. It had taken him years, some accounts say 5 years, some say longer, and gone through dozens of verses before Cohen decided it was finished. The original recording barely registered. Cohen's label didn't even release it properly in the United States. In 1991, John Cale, the musician who had co-founded the Velvet Underground, recorded his own version of Hallelujah. He called Cohen and asked for the lyrics. Cohen faxed him 15 pages. Jeff Buckley heard Cale's version, not Cohen's original. He based his recording on what Cale had done with the song. Buckley's version used only 4 verses. He chose them carefully. He recorded it in a few takes. What he did to the song is almost impossible to describe technically. He took a piece of music that was already extraordinary and found something inside it that nobody else had found. A quality of longing that goes beyond what the words themselves contain. The album was released. Hallelujah was buried on side 2. It was not a single, it was not promoted. Almost nobody heard it. In 2008, 11 years after Buckley died, an American Idol contestant sang Hallelujah on live television. The judges said Jeff Buckley's version was the one they knew. Downloads surged overnight. Hallelujah has since been covered more than 300 times. Almost every version is based on Jeff Buckley's recording. Leonard Cohen said, "I understand that it's a good song, but I think people are slightly hypnotized by Jeff Buckley's version of it, as am I." Buckley recorded it in 1994. He was 30 years old when he died. He never knew what that song would become. In early 1997, Buckley moved to Memphis to record his second album. He had been on tour for almost 3 years promoting Grace. He had played hundreds of shows. He had watched the album grow its reputation while the industry still wasn't sure what to do with him. Memphis felt right to him. The city had a specific musical gravity, the place where so much of American music had been made or passed through. He rented a house. He set up a rehearsal space. He was working on an album called My Sweetheart the Drunk. The demos were extraordinary, different from Grace, darker, more experimental. But in the weeks before his death, people around him noticed something had shifted. His manager, Dave Laurie, said Buckley had been acting erratically. He was trying to buy a house that wasn't for sale. He was trying to buy a car that wasn't for sale. He proposed to his girlfriend. He applied for a job as a butterfly keeper at Memphis Zoo. Laurie said later, "A lot of weird stuff that was uncharacteristic for him. I think it was a yearning to settle down. Something was moving in him. Something was trying to find ground. He never got the chance to find it." It was a warm evening. May 29, 1997, Memphis, Tennessee. Buckley was waiting for his band to arrive from New York. He had a rehearsal space booked. There was time to kill. He and his roadie, Keith Fody, drove down to Wolf River Harbor, a channel of the Mississippi, with a boombox. They wanted to listen to music by the water. Buckley had always loved to swim. He loved water. He had jumped into rivers and oceans fully clothed throughout his life, finding something in it. Freedom, release, the specific sensation of being held by something larger than yourself. He waded in, jeans, t-shirt, boots. Keith Fody watched from the bank. A small tugboat passed. Keith shouted at Jeff to move out of the way. Jeff did. Then a larger vessel came through. Buckley was singing. Keith Fody heard him, singing "Whole Lotta Love" by Led Zeppelin out loud in the river at night, the way someone sings when they are completely at ease. Keith moved the boombox away from the incoming wake. He looked away for a moment. When he looked back, the water was calm. Jeff Buckley was gone. Keith Fody said later, there was no sight of Jeff, nothing. No struggle, no cry, just the river and the darkness, and then nothing where a person had been. His body was found 6 days later, June 4th, 1997. A passenger on a riverboat called American Queen spotted him. The autopsy found no drugs, no alcohol, nothing in his system. The cause of death was accidental drowning. The wake from the passing vessel had pulled him under. The currents of the Mississippi had done the rest. He was 30 years old, 6 weeks short of his 31st birthday. His mother spread his ashes at the Memphis Zoo, the zoo where, just weeks before his death, he had applied for a job as a butterfly keeper. Grace, the one album he finished, has since been named one of the greatest records ever made. Rolling Stone ranked it in their list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. David Bowie took it to his desert island. Hallelujah has been heard by hundreds of millions of people. The second album, My Sweetheart the Drunk, was released in 1998, assembled from demos and incomplete recordings. His girlfriend Joan Wasser said she still cannot listen to it. Jeff Buckley met his father once, for 9 days. Then his father died at 28. Jeff Buckley died at 30. One album, one voice, one river. The specific tragedy of Jeff Buckley is not just what he lost. It is what he was about to make. The second album existed in his head. The demos exist on tape. We hear fragments of something that was going to be extraordinary. And then the water took it. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. The Jeff Buckley Files continues. And there are more stories like this one every week.